We will now invite Brother Gagnon to the platform.
Thank you, Brother X, for inviting me to the platform today. Thank you for... So the title of today's talk will be, What is Truth? Well, many people have different views of truth. Some view it as a subjective thing. They'll say, oh, the truth is what it is. It'll be different from person to person. Others will say that you can't handle the truth. But what about we as Jehovah's Witnesses? What do we think of the truth? It's our organization. It's our belief. It's our God. Jehovah is truth. 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 What are you supposed to... What is truth? I've been taught my entire life that this is the truth. But something feels wrong. I'm not sure if I'm sorry, brothers. Give me a second. Give me just 2 seconds. Got it. It's getting a little hot in here. Just give me a second. Be right with you. Okay, I'm back. Well, you know, there's some dodgy things about our organization, but that doesn't mean I don't believe in God, right? 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 Huh. What do I believe in now? My entire world is a lie? I don't like this. I don't want this. And normally, I pretend I didn't hear any of this. But I can't... Sorry, give me a second. Years of mental anguish coming and washing over me. Need to get this crap off me. Hello. Now, okay, that was a dramatic recreation of my time as a Jehovah's Witness and leaving it. Very, very, very dramatic. But you may have seen the EXJW hashtag on my videos. All of them. I put it on every video. And for the most part, I'm not shy about saying why it's there. And I'm not shy about saying that I am a former Jehovah's Witness. But I've never actually sat down and fully went through why that's important for me to do. I have never sat down and thought about, never actually, like, I've wanted been doing this for many years, but, well, exactly 4. Because today marks 4 years since I left a cult. 4 years since I left everything that I knew to forge ahead. And 4 years since I lost everyone I loved. Today is a day that's both liberating and exciting, but also incredibly deep and sad to me. Because I got this wonderful mixed bag of emotions. But there's a reason why, and this is I'm going to be going into the reasons why I feel it's necessary for me to put myself out there, talk about this, and really just delve into my time as a former Jehovah's Witness. Hence, I'm wearing the appropriate shirt. I may cringe, but I am free. So, over a few ground rules. I will not be interacting with chat, except for a few Q&A sessions that are sprinkled throughout the thing. Just because it's the nature. I have a presentation, I have a flow, I have notes, I have ideas. But that doesn't stop you from chatting. Please don't stop chatting. You can put your comments and even your questions, because I might go up in the chat and answer those questions. But yes, my name is Tristan Gagnon, and I am a former Jehovah's Witness. So let's get into this presentation. All right. Slideshow. I need you, and I need you, and I need you. There we go. And oh, magic. Oh crap! I messed up. Give me a second. I've got to do this live. I can't do this. I have to do this live. I can't do this normal. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. This is also going to be a YouTube video, so don't be... I like doing things live. Also, I made the rest of these slides, like half of these slides today, because even as a Jehovah's Witness, I always procrastinated everything to the last day. All right. So, let's try this again. Why am I a former Jehovah's Witness? In other words, how did I wake up from a comforting nightmare? Oh, what a title. What a title. Gotta be dramatic. You have to be dramatic. So, we're going to be going over who are Jehovah's Witnesses. Most people have a general idea, but we're going to get a little bit deeper into them. Not as deep as I could, because that is a significant amount of investment of time, and I don't intend this to be something that lasts forever. We're going to get in my life as a Jehovah's Witness, based on the title, my deconversion process, and a little bit on my musings and philosophies on life now. That's probably the shortest section. And each section will contain a Q&A at the end, so by all means, if you have questions, you can either type in the chat as soon as you have them, or wait until my Q&A session pops up at the end of each section. And yes, I am using Comic Sans, and I am going to continue to use it. I happen to like the font. Daniel Ann, sounds interesting. Happy Friday, brother. Hello, hello. I naturally reacted to chat. Okay. What in the world are Jehovah's Witnesses? Quite simply, they're a Christian group. Like, this is like the dictionary definition. They are a Christian group. A little bit odd compared to some other Christians, as they are known for not believing in the hellfire doctrine. They're not believing the Trinity doctrine. They do not believe everybody goes to heaven. And they're known for waking you up on Saturdays preaching, and other times as well. Very similar, a lot of times they get confused with Mormons because of how often they are preaching. There are about 8 million or so Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. However, there's something that's really, really important to their doctrine that they will talk to you about, but they also don't want to dwell too much on it for the first time they interact with you. And that's well, and my slides broke. And my slides broke. Come on. Please. It was working. It was working. Okay. Of course it doesn't work. Why are my slides not working? Something broke my slides. You are fired. I am well aware. Crap. Okay, well, we work with the show. We work with the show. We work with it. So, give me 2 seconds while I put everything back together. Alright, so this image is lovely. There are a few other images like it. I'm actually going to post one on stream if I can find it, because it's also a pretty important stream. Wait, give me a second while I move it over here so you guys can't see my folders. I swear I was fine. I promise you. There we go. This image is really important. Armageddon. When was it? When will it come? Jehovah's Witnesses are a doomsday cult. They believe that the end of the world is about to happen any day now. What's funny about this Watchtower magazine is I remember when I was 14, well, I would have been 13 or so at the time, 13, 14, and handing this out to people. I personally remember handing out this specific one and being a little bit weirded out slightly by it. But they genuinely believe the world is about to come anytime, any day. They believe they're in the last second of the last hour of the last day of the world, that God is going to destroy everything. And they've been saying that for over 100 years. They also have another belief, which is this image. That is the only one that decided to work. We go back. Can I please get this to work? I can't believe everything decided to break, but that's okay. It's going to make everything feel more authentic. So, this lovely image is used in their study publications. They believe that Satan, the devil, controls the entire world. Everything. Literally everything. Every government, every religion, every institution, education, and so on and so forth. Everything that isn't them is the world. And everything that isn't you in the Jehovah's Witness faith, you are a worldly person. They believe that all the problems are associated because of that, and that believe that mankind cannot rule itself and requires God to rule over mankind. An ancient bet took place, and that is why we are the way we are, according to JW theology. So, that's kind of a little bit about them, but I've called them a cult. Well, why do I call them a cult? Well, the thing about cults arose by any other name. The word cult has many definitions, and it is subjective by its very nature. In this story, we will be using it in the context of high control groups. Well, what are high control groups? Well, Steve Hassan developed the BITE model. The BITE model stands for, he's a doctor of psychology, Dr. Steve Hassan, and he was actually a former cult member himself. He was a former Moonie, and he became a therapist. He became a psychologist, and he developed the BITE model, which stands for behavior, information, thought, and emotional control. And cults affect all parts of these. Many organizations will control, like, maybe certain aspects of these, like many religions will control your behavior, but they won't control your thoughts or your emotions or your information you're allowed to consume. That's what distinguishes groups and organizations from cults, because cults control all of these. We have a little bit of a model here, right? Dr. Steve Hassan's bite model. So in behavior, you have control of physical environment. Basically, hey, you're not. Are you allowed to hang out with these people? Here is your structured day-to-day life. Here is what you're supposed to be doing in your day-to-day life. Rigid rules. If you do this, it needs to be done this way. There are no gray areas. If you do this, it's bad. If you do this, it's good. So on and so forth. Rewards and punishments. If you do good, you'll get this status. But if you do bad, well, we might kick you out and shun you forever. And dependence on obedience. They design a system where if you do decide to leave, there are problems integrating back into society. You got information, deception, just lies. Constant lies. And that could be lies about how the world operates. It could be lies on even scientific things, right? It's like, does evolution happen? Right? Information, propaganda. You all know what propaganda is. Discourage access to outside sources of information. Literally get punished for that. Insider-outsider doctrine. Well, you got the good people. You got the worldly people. You got thought control. All or nothing, good and evil, us or them dogma. Well, some cults, and one we're talking about today, believes that the whole world, but them, is within Satan, the devil's control. They encourage only good and proper thoughts. Jehovah's Witnesses do not vote, and they will tell you to not even think about who you want to win the vote. They may even say you are grieving too much when someone you love dies. Think about that for a moment. Sorry, you are grieving too much for a loved one. Can't have that. Then you have thought-stopping techniques. These are things where they teach you that if there's something that goes wrong, or you come across things that you shouldn't come across, your brain will automatically reject them. You attack the thought and you run away. Then you have the emotional, feeling chosen or special. Jehovah's Witnesses believe they're the only true religion, hence why within their inner circle they call it the truth. The organization, the truth. Jehovah's Witnesses, the truth. Guilt manipulation. Sorry, you're never good enough when you're a Jehovah's Witness. You are never good enough. Emotion blocking techniques and phobia indoctrination. Lovely. All the examples I gave, every single one of these and more are exactly what Jehovah's Witnesses do. And this is why I'm not afraid to call them a cult. Sure, the individual members can be quite nice and quite pleasant to interact with, and some of them are a little less insane than others. It doesn't change the fact that they have a level of control on them that is very intense. Maybe not the most intense. There are obviously crazier cults out there. But it is very intense. So, we all know Jehovah's Witnesses from this activity. Preaching! Jehovah's Witnesses are known for their door-to-door preaching work, only really stopping during the COVID pandemic. Yeah, that's what they do. It's important. They believe it's designed from God. A charge from them to do so. And Jesus, actually. as much as they will say to outsiders that this is a volunteer effort, in their minds, this is not something they just do. Their lives depend on it. If you didn't, it's like based on their doctrine, if you didn't do enough, you have blood on your hands if someone died during Armageddon, and you could have saved them. And maybe you won't make it into the new world if you don't do this. When I was talking about you are never good enough, this is part of it. You can always give more. Jehovah's Witnesses will judge their peers based on how many hours of service is done. 10 hours a month is the average to be in good standing, typically. That can be up or down. And anything less, you could get a call from the elders. Well, who are the elders? Well, they're the leaders of specific congregations, right? They're one of the higher ranks you can achieve. However, to be really zealous, you'd be expected to be putting in 50 to 70 hours a month. And these ones are called pioneers. And some, called special pioneers, put in even more, up to 100 hours. This is all done without compensation. They're not paid to do this, so yes, it's volunteer work, but they're coerced to do it based on guilt and shame. And yes, they really do spend 50 to 70 hours a month, some of them, not all of them, but some do. I know this because I used to be one of them. I used to be a pioneer putting in 50 hours a month on top of my normal everyday work life. Yeah. What else are they up to? What other things? Well, being a Jehovah's Witness is generally not a casual affair. Meetings, given responsibilities, maintaining your status all take a great deal of time. Fun fact, these responsibilities from maintaining the property to cleaning toilets is called a privilege. And you work hard to maintain your ability to keep doing these privileges. To have these taken away from you is a very shameful experience and may let others know, even if it was not publicly stated, that you did something wrong. Maintaining your privileges is important. And the last privilege to be taken away is your ability to go door to door. When that is taken away, you're in really hot water. This is all on top of your normal day-to-day life, and this is on purpose, to keep you on that hamster wheel, to keep you focused on this and only this. The end of the world is coming. Preaching, doing your privileges, maintaining this, learning about this, doing all of this, going to work, coming back home, doing it all over again every single day. You don't really have time to question things. You don't really have time to say, maybe this wasn't what I want. But let's go over there. We talked about like rankings. We got the elders, which are the heads of the congregation, but who's at the very top? Cults typically have a people at the top, and there's no difference here. These guys. The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. 8 white men and 1 token black guy. These guys have essentially complete control over 8 million people. They can say tomorrow that something is wrong and shouldn't be done, and 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses will stop doing that thing. They'll say tomorrow, oh wait, that thing was actually okay to do, so it's okay to do it. And 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses will continue to do it and resume to do it. The most common and one of the most recent examples that I'm going to put in are beards. Beards were considered to be a sign that you were not focused on spiritual matters. But then the governing body said that it's okay to have, and then magically, beards became en vogue. These guys have a crazy amount of power for the average person. I'm not going to pretend to know their intentions or their what they want. I don't know them personally. I've met one of these guys personally. I've met this guy personally. I've met that guy personally. But I don't know them personally. I just know that they're a head of a very toxic organization and have continued to make things toxic. What happens when you speak out? If at any point you decide for whatever reason that the truth is anything but that, and decide to vocalize that, you become an apostate. Hi, me. I'm the apostate. Apostates are treated as someone to be truly feared in many respects. In some ways, they're considered to be in league with Satan, or just as bad. Excerpt from one of their articles is, Satan and those under his influence often mix lies with truths in an attempt to undermine our faith. For example, the Assyrians use half-truths and outright lies to discourage Jehovah's people. Apostates use similar tactics today. How should we react to apostate teachings? Treat them as the poison they are. Never read them, reply to them, or repeat them. Be quick to detect information that is designed to raise doubts about Jehovah's organization and reject it. Whoa. Another one that they did. This one was made 14 years ago. How can we protect ourselves against false teachers? The Bible's counsel regarding how to deal with them is clear. Avoid them, says God's word. Other translations render that phrase, turn away from them, keep away from them, and stay away from them. There is nothing ambiguous about that inspired counsel. Suppose that a doctor told you to avoid contact with someone who is infected with a contagious, deadly disease. You would know what the doctor means, and you would strictly heed his warning. Except apparently when COVID becomes a thing. You would know, well, apostates are mentally diseased. And they seek to infect others with their disloyal teachings. Jehovah, the great physician, tells us to avoid contact with them. We know what he means, but are we determined to heed his warning in all respects? Yes, apostates are spiritual zombies. We go, seeking the brains, infecting you with our virus so that you immediately turn into an apostate. Coming into contact with us will immediately destroy who your faith is and who you are. Yeah, apostates aren't really a bueno thing. Not a good thing. And to be labeled as one is very concerning. You're not allowed to live as a Jehovah's Witness, sometimes. Because of the nature of this is pretty funny. I found this thing, this article, 141 things Jehovah's Witnesses can't do. Now, keep in mind that when I talk about these, some of these things are not as bad. If you do them, you'll get a talking to. Others you might get kicked out of the faith for. But I just found, and then some of these things have also been changed, but I just found it funny. So let's just run through them real quick. Belong to another organization or club for the purpose of socializing with non-believers. Having best friends and active buddies who are not Jehovah's Witnesses. Associate with people outside the organization when it is not as necessary. Attend social functions sponsored by their employer unless attendance is required. Associate with coworkers after business hours in the social setting. Disagree with their organization rules and code of conduct. Disagree with the organization's doctrine. Contribute to the presidential campaign fund on their tax return. Join the armed forces and defend their country. Say the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute the flag. Vote. Run for the leadership in the organization. JWs are appointed and invited to be leaders. Run for the leadership in any organization. Take a stand for any political issue inside their organization. Take a stand on any political or worldly issue outside of their organization. Campaign for a political candidate. Hold political office. Discuss politics. Be a union steward or a shop steward. Actively be involved in a union strike. Use a gun for protection against humans. Become a police officer if a gun is required. Wear military uniforms or clothing associated with war. Take yoga classes and practice the discipline of yoga. Smoke tobacco and cigars. Work full-time selling tobacco and cigars. Attend Alcoholics Anonymous. Donate blood. Have blood transfusions. Read books, magazines, publications, and literature from other religions. Buy anything from a church store. Buy something at a church garage sale. Donate items to a church store. Shop at Salvation Army. Work for the Salvation Army. Work for another church. Play competitive sports on the school team. Play competitive sports professionally. Run for class president. Become a cheerleader. Go to the school prom or school dance. Attend class reunions. Be hypnotized. Accept Jesus as their mediator. Join the Boy Scouts. Join the Girl Guide. Join the YMCA. Serve on jury duty. Study psychology, philosophy, sociology, and viewpoints that may shade their face. Attend other Christian churches. Attend non-denominational churches. Attend non-Christian churches. Get married in another church. Dating non-believers is discouraged. Casual dating is discouraged. Dating someone without the intent of getting married. Having sex before marriage. Before breaking an engagement. Separation. An unscriptural divorce may result in disciplinary action. Marriage to non-believers is not recommended. Be gay or lesbian. Homosexuality is not acceptable. Throw rice at a wedding. Get divorced unless the reason is adultery. Can't remarry unless their ex commits fornication first. Toast drinks. That has been changed. Literally, like, within the last week. That's just amusing to me. Buy a raffle ticket, play bingo, gamble, sing any holiday song, sing the national anthem, celebrate Christmas, celebrate New Year's Eve, celebrate Easter, celebrate Mother's Day, celebrate Father's Day, celebrate Birthday, celebrate Thanksgiving, celebrate Flag Day, celebrate Veterans Day, celebrate Independence Day, celebrate St. Patrick's Day, celebrate Valentine's Day, celebrate Halloween, celebrate Hanukkah, accept holiday gifts, celebrate any holiday except the death of Jesus, partake in the bread and wine that represents Christ unless they are part of the 144,000, make holiday artwork for school, engage in holiday parties in school, take on leadership role in school, pornea. We'll get into that one. Do suggestive and modest dancing in a public place. Attend a class workshop or seminar sponsored by another church. Attend social events or fundraising sponsored by another church. Use of bad language is discouraged. Wear blue jeans, shorts, and overly casual clothing at the Kingdom Hall. That has also been slightly changed. Wear pants at the Kingdom Hall if you're a woman. That has also been changed. Like, very recently. Wear revealing clothes or skirts that are too short. Wear long hair or facial hair if you're a man. That has been changed. So we're at 4 things out of 141 things changed. Body piercings, tattoos, state or imply that the Watchtower is not run by Jehovah God. Have discussions that express Bible-based viewpoints that contradict the organization's beliefs. Say anything negative about their organization. Consider other religious beliefs as valid and truthful. Acknowledge any prayer spoken by a non-believer as valid. Take another Jehovah's Witness to court, with exceptions. Wear or own a cross. Own any religious picture. Own any religious statue. Engage in idolatry. Believe in miracles, except those found in the Bible. Believe in ghosts, witchcraft, black magic, white magic. Consult with a psychic or become one. Study tarot cards. Get a reading or give a reading, study numerology or get a reading, dabble in ESP or divination. Use a tool used as pendulum to access information with the spiritual realm. Attempt to communicate with the Department of Spirits. Attend a seance. Believe in good luck or saying things is good luck to you. Why? Believe or say anything superstitious. Prophesy, speak in tongues, lay on the hands, energy healing such as Reiki. Study their horoscope, study astrology or zodiac signs. Combat training, boxing or martial arts. Go to heaven unless they're part of the 144,000. Worship Jesus as God. Idolize any celebrity or love and admire them to excess. Women can't be elders. Women can't be ministerial servants. Divulge secret information to enemies and those not entitled to know. Greet or talk with the disfellowship persons. Associate with the fellowship persons except for the immediate family living in the same house. Keep secrets from the organization. Jehovah's Witnesses report friends and family members breaking the rules. Fun fact, there's more than that. There is a lot more than that. No, pork is allowed. But continuing on. A culture of judging others entirely based on how people follow the rules and the levels of obedience. Jehovah's Witnesses don't just judge you as Jehovah's Witnesses will constantly judge other Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not once you're in the club, you're in the club. It's once you're in the club, you better keep your status within the club, or else other people will start shaming you. Or just stop talking to you. Some rules that are particularly nasty, at least in my opinion, there's obviously a mod, no blood transfusions. That has killed people. We'll get into that later. No holidays. Not so bad as you get older, but as a kid, that's devastating and very socially ostracizing. No unnecessary association with unbelievers. That level of control is very pervasive. And pornea. Pornea is basically anything sexual. Anything from dancing suggestively to pornography. Like, it's a very catch-all term and very subjective. Doing any of these things could result in removal. How to enforce belief. Get them to do it themselves. So, the first, we talked about punishment. Well, the first level of punishment is social ostracizing. Essentially, if members detect that you have done something wrong, they will stop interacting with you as much. Maybe entirely. Even though you haven't been kicked out of the faith yet, they'll view you as sick. Spiritually sick. You need to be quarantined until you improve your attitude. The next one is removal of privileges, which further enforces the social ostracizing, because now everybody sees that you don't have those privileges anymore. Then you have private shaming. If you've done enough, the elders will take you to the back room, judge you, and they'll privately shame you. That will remove essentially all your privileges. And it's not a fun time. I would know. We'll get into that. Public shaming. They will get on the stage. They will get on the platform and say, brother or sister so and so has been publicly reproved. They won't say exactly what you did, but they will say, but they will let everybody know that you've done something wrong and that they need to be careful around you. And finally, removal. You can be forcibly kicked out, and when you are forcibly kicked out, you are shunned. Your friends, your family, are not allowed to associate with you beyond what is absolutely necessary. This is one of the more dangerous things they have. This is what separates many groups from being a cult or not. The genuine enforcement, shaming, and finally the shunning that comes afterwards. We have made it to the Q&A section! Final thoughts on the organization, some axolotl pictures for your pleasure. So I've seen a few questions, and I'm going to say hello to everybody. And I'm going to go up and answer some of the questions. Daniel Ann says, who goes to heaven? Is it pre-decided like Calvinism? Yes, there's 144,000 that goes to heaven. God has ordained as such, and they will rule as kings and priests with Jesus in heaven, while the rest of us live on our perfect paradise earth, according to their beliefs. Do they have virgins delivered to them every night? I think this was in reversing to the governing body. I don't think so, but I don't know. Do they do anything to affect your life since you left? Yes. Shunned. For 4 years. I have not talked to my friends or my family for 4 years. Yeah. Hello, Outcast Bros. Is pork allowed? Yes, pork is allowed. There are not very many dietary restrictions. Except for things containing blood with them. What if you bump into a sexy woman in the subway? I'm sure that's not considered pornea. And what are the privileges you keep mentioning? I mentioned them earlier, But the privileges are anything from going door to door, and serving the Kingdom Hall. Like just serving. It could be anything from cleaning toilets to managing the literature, managing the accounts, doing property maintenance. Just all these things are linked under privileges. And Ayumi says, from what I learned of the world, the leaders are very unlikely to believe what they preach. They are most likely in for the money, power, and fame amongst the followers. When it comes to that, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're genuine. Maybe they're charlatans. I do not know, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Going door to door is considered a privilege? Absolutely. Now, I haven't gone into super, super huge depth, like, with everything. Like, it may seem like I did, but I didn't. I can go on for hours about the specifics of this and that and this and that. Their downright misogyny, their downright homophobia. These are all things that exist within the organization and nurtured. But I believe I've said enough, and I've talked about like the big things. So yeah, that is kind of my final thoughts on the organization, and enjoy these axolotls. And thank you for your comments, and thank you for your questions. Moving on to the next one. Come on. Come on. There we go. The early game. We're going to be talking about my life. And the early game is a reference from when I was 0 to 10 years old. I was born in northern BC, Canada. I am a third generation Jehovah's Witness on my father's side, and a fourth generation on my mother's side. Which means my grandparents were in it on my father's side, and my great-grandparents were in it on my mother's side. From about 0 to 10, my family was devout. Like, don't get me wrong, they were devout, but not as much as it would become later. My father was working a full-time job. He had a pretty, like, we were relatively normal. Like, people wouldn't automatically assume that there was anything strange about us or anything very, very different about us, except for the fact that we didn't do holidays. School was okay, but there was still that whole thing with no holidays. And as a kid, that does a lot of damage. Like, psychologically, it's that pull away from people. And interestingly enough, I was not as isolated as I would later become. I had plenty of young friends that were worldly, that were not Jehovah's Witnesses. I had friends. I could interact with them. I could hang out with them. I could learn and adapt. And I was not as isolated. However, that would change. This is where the cult fun really begins. This is where the fun really begins. I moved to Kitimat, BC with a very convenient timing. So my father was a power engineer for a pulp mill where we lived. And 3 months after, we moved to Kitimat, BC for spiritual reasons. My father was saying he had he was not being spiritual enough. He wasn't taking care of his family spiritually. He wasn't serving God enough. So he quit his job. We sold the house and we moved to Kitimat. And 3 months later, the pulp mill that he was working at shut down. My parents believed at the time that was quite literally God protecting them. They believed that was like the perfect sign that cemented why they were there. It lined up so perfectly. 3 months. Not only did this reinforce this belief that they needed to do more, it made everything we did, we had to double down on. Meetings, meeting attendance, spiritual stuff, service, all that to do more and more. Even though at this point in my life, my parents became the poorest they had ever been, except when they had first got married. there's a little funny story. I would have been, I don't know, 11. And I was very tired. I had trouble sleeping as a child, often. Very often, especially during this time, from about 10 to 16 years old. I had a lot of trouble sleeping. And I remember waking up for a meeting, and I was so tired. And I didn't want to go to the meeting, so I said the one thing that kind of made sense to me at the time: how do I know God exists? My father, he looked at me extremely sternly. He looked at me, he says, I don't care what you're thinking right now. When you're in my house, you will do this. So you're not getting out of this. Get to the meeting. And I hadn't seen my father like that scared. Like, he wasn't like angry, he was scared. And thankfully, well, not thankfully, but it wasn't necessarily something that woke me up or something that I was genuinely believing at the time. It was just something I wanted to do to get out of it currently. And my young brain thought that was a good idea. But then it reinforced a belief that questioning what I was taught when it came to the truth was not something you do. Very, very dangerous. School went from easy mode to Ultra Kill New Game Plus. I was bullied every single day in my new school for about 5 years. And the bullying didn't stop when I got home. See, one of the things what I'm going to say now is that whilst my parents had me within wedlock, they committed porneia with my conception. I found this out around, I don't know, 12, when I did the math between their wedding date and my birth date. It's not a hard math equation. I'm like, there's a few dates missing. That's not 9 months. And whilst I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, and I can't say that's how my father viewed me, I can say that was something that did affect my relationship with my father. I was a walking reminder of one of his greatest sins. Having sex before marriage is really bad. And I was walking, living proof of it. Whilst I don't have problems with my father now, necessarily in the sense of, like, I have forgiven that aspect of my father for being extremely hard and difficult raising me. There's obviously other problems with the fact that he doesn't talk to me because I'm Sean, but at the time, it was devastating. And it was very difficult to be the golden child, be the child that my parents would be constantly proud of. Except for one thing. I excelled as a good Christian boy. When it came to Jehovah's Witnesses and the organizations, I was a natural. I could pick up the information very quickly. I could internalize that information exceedingly fast. I could teach the information very quickly. I had no problems going door to door. I had no problems being up on stage. I had no problems wanting to do more for the congregation. When we moved, after a little bit, my father became an elder, which is one of the, like I said, one of the highest statuses you can achieve. And that propelled our family even further into like the limelight as being the good Christian family, especially with what I was doing. And the dream I had as a little boy was to go to Bethel. Now, Bethel was the place is a facility location. There's a Bethel in all countries where Jehovah's Witnesses are present, and they make, translate all the literature and stuff for Jehovah's Witnesses. That is how they do, and that is how they function. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to make my life literally about entire service to God. The biggest mistake of my life, and then what I thought was the biggest mistake of my life. Whoa, what a title. I was baptized at 13 years old, and thus began a social contract that has a lot more social repercussions than marriage. Jehovah's Witnesses pride themselves on not baptizing babies. Jehovah's Witnesses pride themselves on saying, hey, we don't baptize children. You have to be informed before you get baptized. That's what separates us from those pesky other Christians. And then they'll be clapped when an 8-year-old gets baptized or a 13-year-old person gets baptized. Because if you now ever decide to leave, you'll get shunned from all your friends and family. You will have lost your entire community. Informed my ass. And they don't discourage very young people from getting baptized. In fact, they like them getting baptized young. They do everything they can to encourage young people to get baptized, because once you get baptized, you've entered that social contract. If you don't get baptized, like if your parents are baptized and you never got baptized, your parents don't have to shun you if you never do get baptized and just like go away from the faith. Some parents might, but they often don't. They don't have to. But if you get baptized, I was now given even more privileges on a very regular basis. I was a young teenager, and I was up on the platform giving talks, giving sermons, doing readings, doing sound, giving out the literature, going out in service. All these great things. I was in an element. I was in my element. I was doing very well for myself as a Jehovah's Witness. My father had become an elder. I was doing this. My mother was a pioneer. We were a model family. So whilst at school and home, it was very difficult and I was always stressed out, the Kingdom Hall, or their church, I was respected. It also helps that I'm a male and not a woman, because if I was a woman, there'd be an entirely different story. You don't get all the privileges if you're a woman. But since I was respected there, I put in a lot of effort while I was there. I did everything I could to maintain and keep growing my status. But I developed a problem. A 13-year-old boy had discovered how to manipulate his penis. The horror, the problem in question. Now, a disclaimer, I don't think any of this is just a meme I found. But, yes. As a child, I found masturbation was kind of neat. But that falls under pornea. And pornea is a catch-all term for unclean sexual conduct, and masturbation is part of that. It is so pervasive. And what happened was, eventually I was caught by my parents. Oh no. Most other houses, very awkward conversation. In my house, it made my mother cry, and it made my father filled with rage at me. And demanded I go to the elders and confess my sins. I was 13. I cannot stress this enough. So I went to the elders, confessed. They sat me down, they interrogated me. What did you do? Where did you touch yourself? How did you do it? Did you watch pornography? I did. What type of pornography did you do? What type of pornography did you watch? What about this? What about that? These are men that were not related to me at all, grilling a 13-year-old boy on how he was touching himself and what he was watching on the internet. I was privately reproved because I had shown enough shame and heartache that I was willing to be corrected. And my privileges were taken away for, I don't know, not very super long, like I'd say about 4 months. But during that time, it was very awkward because I was always doing something. So when I was all of a sudden not doing anything, people noticed. And I noticed people treated me differently. All because of an extremely normal thing to do. And healthy, too. This is the level of control. And my story isn't even the worst. So, finishing up the mid-game. So when I was, 13 onwards, 16. After that, after I got that, out of the way, I devoted even more of my time and energy to faith. I was renewed. I was like, okay, I'm not going to fall into the habits again. I'm going to be a good Jehovah's Witness boy. But I would still occasionally get in trouble with talking with girls at school. Yes, talking to them got me in trouble. Not dating them, not fooling around with them, just talking to them. It was unnecessary. Eventually, we moved to Prince George, BC, and school became less of a problem. I was a little bit more mature and less awkward, and I was able to kind of control the weirdness aspects. I've always been a weird individual, an odd guy, but I was able to tone it down a little bit, which helped, although I was still had problems being a Jehovah's Witness. And I made friends with people my age in the cult for once. I finally had that. I was used to being part of small towns with no kids my age. Masturbation would somehow return and cause guilt for a very, very long time. This time I kept it secret, and this time I didn't get caught. This time I knew the secrets. But it didn't change the fact that I felt the guilt. Every time. And worried about the destruction, about Armageddon coming. Didn't help with my sleep. And eventually, I'd move out the house the day I turned 18. Literally the day. Turned 18, goodbye. Now we go into the late game, from 18 till about 22. For a couple months after, my cult activities diminished a little bit. I was finally on my own, I was working. I finally didn't have somebody forcing me to go, so it kind of dipped a little bit. And the elders would approach me and encourage me to do more. They're like, we're worried about you. They sat me down, like, we want you to do more again, and all this. So they pushed me to be the best cult member I could be. So that's what I did. I did everything. Pioneering. I was going 50 hours a month in door-to-door preaching work. I became a ministerial servant, which is the rank just below an elder. I did Kingdom Hall construction, disaster relief, accounting, all while holding down a job. And more. I did tons of stuff. I gave a sermon every week, almost. I would do the reading of all this sort of stuff every week. I have given parts and sermons in front of thousands. I was doing what I could. I was a model for that. And many of my friends in my old congregation, including my brother. So before I moved away at 18, there was that congregation, they were disfellowshipped a lot, including my brother. Which, shamedly, fed my ego a bit. Because I was the paragon of faith. Just ignore my one-handed adventures. But, I was this paragon of faith. Whilst everybody else was falling around me, I was persevering. And finally, my father was looking at me not as a mistake, but as a success. I was finally viewed in a good light. Not just by my father, but everybody. I had respect. I had people listen to me. I had authority. And I was looking to be an elder very shortly. So, that was my life within the cult. My personal life, when it comes to this sort of stuff, there are plenty of stories. I could go on and on for hours. This is kind of a condensed version of things and some very important events that shows the harm it did in my early life. And so I didn't have a horrible upbringing. I'm not saying that I had like this horrible, like dark upbringing. I had a relatively reasonable upbringing, except I grew up in a cult. Don't hurry, Planksy. We will get there. So, yeah, that I didn't have like a horrible, except for growing up in a cult, and that by itself was very toxic. Like the most toxic elements of my early life, from 0 to 22, were all related to the cult. And now we open up to the Q&A. Didn't see many questions here, but a few things that I saw that I liked is guests don't mind saying, I think demonizing sexual pleasure is a part that religions and cults lose a lot of their community. They do, but they also keep a lot. If they can control that part of you, they control a lot more parts of you. And what you were saying, I personally saw a lot in Islam. They do all the same things. Yes. Radical, like hardcore Islam and Jehovah's Witnesses do very much the same thing. Except no honor killings within the Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses don't do honor killings. But yes, if anybody has any questions, I'm going to take a quick drink. And then once I take the drink, I'll move on if there's no other questions. Blanksy, when I was younger, I used to feel guilt and shame when I masturbated also. It's a common technique used by a lot of religions. A lot of people. That guilt and shame can move you to do mountains of work for them. All right. Moving on. The beginning of the end. Now we're getting into my deconversion process. Few notes. I was always a fairly rational-minded person. When people would attribute bad things to demons, I would usually have another answer that was not supernatural. Not to say that I didn't believe that the supernatural existed, I just reserved that for extremely specific circumstances. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that demons and spirits are all around the world trying to cause issues. And some members go a little bit more insane than others and say that anything bad that happens is a result of demons. And I'd be the one to be like, well, that could also just be this. Like this normal everyday thing. I remember explaining to a person that I had sleep paralysis. and they thought I was being attacked by demons. And I said, no, it's just sleep paralysis. It's just sleep paralysis. So when it came to, so I always kind of had these dubious claims. I do remember the one time I thought I had come in contact with the supernatural, but that was more just a preconceived fear of other culture magic, because I came across a First Nation shaman, and it scared me. And I attributed that fear to me thinking I had a supernatural experience. Ironically enough, though, one of the things that helped me to start looking everything a lot more critically was looking into the Flat Earth Society. I would laugh at them as I learned more and viewed them as really stupid for not thinking critically and being victims of cognitive dissonance. I'd be like, Lamau. Look at these people. Look at them not thinking. Look at them not thinking for themselves. Look at them how they think, and look at how they validate their thinking. It's so wrong. It's so dumb. Yeah. I went quite so far to look into my own religion until COVID-19, the pandemic. Great time for everybody. I am sure. Fantastic time for everybody, I am sure. But during the pandemic, I finally had some time to myself. There was no preaching door to door because pandemic rules. All meetings and the religious services were held over Zoom. And I really only had to focus on work. And so questions started to come to my mind. Little nuggets that I've just buried away from when I was younger. Things that didn't add up, things that didn't make sense. My first dive into apostate material, I rationalized it by saying, I'm just seeing what the lies the enemy says so I can better counteract them. Don't worry. My faith, strong. Those apostate lies can't hurt my faith. No way. They can't hurt it. What are they going to do? Well, my first plunge into apostate material, mainly just general research, literally gave me nightmares and anxiety. I prayed all night that night. It scared me. It scared me really badly because everything that the apostates were saying made perfect sense. And they weren't lying. They weren't lying. At all. And that scared me something fierce because I'm like, well, there's something wrong with me if I can't see through these lies. I would stop for a couple months, but I'd eventually come back for more. Now we get to the really tough part. One of the things that I came across was the Australian Royal Commission. The Australian Royal Commission was an investigation into organizations and how they handled child sexual abuse. And Jehovah's Witnesses were on that list. And Jehovah's Witnesses were among the most difficult to deal with. The most absolutely difficult to deal with, trying to hide information, lying constantly, trying to not take blame for the actions, for the way their organization was set up, and the way their organization is still set up. It's very easy for predators to take advantage of people's trust. I'm not saying that Jehovah's Witnesses as an organization condone predatory behavior like that. Absolutely not. But their organization makes it very easy to do. The Australian Royal Commission produced thousands of cases. Thousands. And why this particularly hit me was because at those times, both my girlfriends that I had, like both my romantic partners that I ever had, were victims of that. And not only were they victims, they got no justice. Their perpetrator still walks free, still has privileges within the faith. And on top of that, in one of the instances, the girl was punished for being abused. She was punished for it. And shamed for it. And then years later would be asked, why don't you forgive him? Why do you react that way when you're around him? Get over it. Forgive him. Because that's another really scary part of Jehovah's Witness culture, is so long as you're not an apostate, everything should be able to be forgiven. Everything. And that was one of the singular most eye-opening experiences, because not only did I see it in my own personal life, I saw it happening I saw the systemic abuse happening with my own two eyes. Thankfully, she is doing better now. Or they are. They don't use she, her pronouns. They use they, them pronouns. And I'm very proud of them for what they've been able to accomplish. And if they do see this video, I wish you all the best. Keep going. Keep finding that freedom. And then another thing that would hit me like a truck was the policy of blood transfusions. This article here, 1994. Those 3 children on the front cover, dead. Why are they dead? Because they didn't get a blood transfusion. That's it. They didn't get one. They refused it. Their parents refused it for them in some instances. Whilst I don't think Jehovah's Witnesses are as scary as, let's say, Jonestown for cults, that doesn't mean there's not blood in this organization, or lack of it. An interesting thing about this article is the Awake. This is kind of like there were 2 different Watchtower articles. They had 2 different articles and magazines that the Watchtower published. You had the Watchtower, and then you had the Awake. The Watchtower is kind of like more focused on like the Bible, and could be interchangeably used between, Jehovah's Witnesses and worldly people, but the Awake was kind of designed more for worldly people, to give to worldly people, to really get them interested in our faith. Apparently, child martyrdom is on that list. There are more things that I saw, and I could talk about. I could talk about the hypocrisy between the Rwandan Jehovah's Witnesses versus the Mexican Jehovah's Witnesses. I could talk about so many different things. I could talk about, like, what so much I could talk about that's so messed up. And but these two things alone, because I personally experienced them. I almost died because my mother didn't accept a blood transfusion, and I had to go into surgery as a small child to remove my adenoids, and the blood transfusion thing, the doctor said we should probably put you on standby, and my mother said no. Not that, you know, adenoid removal procedure is necessarily a very risky procedure, but I could have possibly ended up the same way as these children. And many more. And not just children, but also adults. Many Jehovah's Witnesses have died because of this very stupid, ignorant practice. So, what really started me to deconvert? Well, first, loss of faith in the organization. What I just talked about now, the previous slide, all of that contributed to my loss of faith in the organization. I couldn't view the organization as truth. Then I lost faith in the Bible, and how I did that was just reading the damn thing again. I'd already read the Bible many, many times, but I now read it with a fresh, open perspective. And I did history, and I did notes, and I looked into this, and I looked into the creation of Yahweh, the storm god, into Jesus. Right? And I just couldn't use this. I couldn't see it as truth. Sure, there are elements of it that are interesting, and there are elements of it that are culturally important, but the Bible is filled with slavery, death, xenophobia, homophobia, and all manners of evil committed by the perfect God. It just didn't work for me. Then finally, loss of faith in God or gods, plural. This one was interesting because I remember the last time I prayed. The last time I prayed. And I was begging, trying, and saying, I just want to know if you're real. Please give me anything. The next day carried on. The day after that it carried on. The day after that it carried on. And I was looking, but every time I see something that would like kind of confirm it, I'd be like, well, confirmation bias. That could be anything. How would I even know? How could I know? then just my rationalism took over. It doesn't really matter. And so, I'm just like, I guess I don't. This was a process of about 6 months. It took 6 months from the first time I delved into apostate material till the moment of my last prayer was about 6 months-ish. Which I came to terms with what I know now. I was in a cult. Today, 4 years ago. Today, 4 years ago, marks the day I gained my freedom, but lost everyone. As a Jehovah's Witness, we talked about how they don't want you interacting with the outside world all too much, beyond what is necessary, and beyond your preaching work. So you don't really have opportunities to make those really strong interpersonal connections. And if you do, you're encouraged to break them. So that if you ever do decide to leave, you don't really have anybody. I gained my freedom. And it was worth the cost. But damn, the cost was pretty high. It would take about 6 months, again, from the time I figured out I was in a cult to eventually leave, as I did have a partner at the time, who I wanted to help see things my way. I tried everything. I tried everything to try to get them to follow the same steps that I did, but you can't do that with people. That's not how the mind works. It's not how cognitive dissonance works. I would have left if not for them immediately. Because I had very strong moral problems. But that partner, I was willing, and I told them straight up, hey, would you still be willing to want to be with me, even if you, and even if I stayed, if you knew that I didn't believe it? I was willing to stay in the organization for them and only them. Which would have been a mistake in hindsight, but at the time, I really loved and cared for them. But they said no. Thankfully. So, I had one last conversation with my partner at the time. And I said goodbye. And they said goodbye. I then went home and I started phoning all of my family. I phoned my brother, I phoned my sister, I phoned my mother, I phoned my grandmother. I just started phoning everybody one last time. The last conversation I reserved was for my father. And it was quite quiet. He didn't yell at me, he didn't scream at me. But I was pretty animated. I was pretty animated. I was like, you have to understand. He was kind of like how I am now. Quiet. A little bit. Low voice. I've already gone through the conversations all the time, but I remember his last words to me, and those last words are still drilled into my head. I hope there's enough time for you to return. And that was it. That was it. And since that day, after that, I called the elders. And I said, I'm out. They wanted me to write a letter stating my formal intentions, and I said, I don't need to do that. Heck you, I'm out. I'm already done with this. And then after my conversation with my dad, I just cried. I ugly cried for a while. I understood the ramifications. I had shunned my brother for a year. I had shunned other family members too. I had shunned other friends. And at the time, I thought I was doing the righteous thing. But now I see for what it is. And how they control. Today is a mixed bag of emotions. On one hand, it's freedom. On the other hand, it's just loss. I have never regretted my decision to leave. Never. Not once. Yes, I still have problems. Yes, there are things that hurt me. And yes, there are still times where I get kind of like an anxiety attack that Armageddon's around the corner. But there just carries over from a bad time. That's why I like the shirt so much. I may be cringe, but I am free. It perfectly exemplifies my personality. And now I have developed and have gone on adventures. And yeah, things aren't perfect. I don't have a happy, like, Disney happy ending, but that's okay. I'm glad that there isn't one. Because that'd be boring. So, what I think now? I'm an unapologetic atheist. I'm pretty vocal in that, and I'm very much a rational thinker. I'm most definitely an unapologetic atheist. I use 4 main philosophies, that being Stoicism, nihilism, absurdism, and just a sprinkle of Buddhism, to try and navigate the world. And the beautiful thing about leaving a cult is you can add more as time goes on, or remove them. You're free. You work with what you got. We don't know what's out there. We know some of the things out there, but we don't know what's out there. Everything. So we work with what we got. And I like working with that. I like figuring that out. I like talking about it. I like talking about like even in politics. Albeit sometimes that gets a very touch problematic occasionally, but like it's still important to me. It's how we navigate the world. And most importantly, I'm a better person now. I am more accepting. I am more loving. I am more kind than when I was a Jehovah's Witness. Being a Jehovah's Witness held me back from being a better person. And held me back from continually striving to be a better person. One of my favorite quotes from Marcus Aurelius. Be a good person. For if there be gods, and they are just, they will not care how devoted you were, but they'd rather judge you based on the virtues you chose to live by. If there be gods and they are not just, you should not want to worship them anyways. They do not deserve your worship. And if there be no gods at all, you have left behind a legacy for your friends and family as being a good person. That line right there makes me move forward. It was the first line that I took to be something that I use to move forward with my life. That's why I'm a big fan of Stoicism. And I think that in general, reasonable people will completely agree with that. So here's to me trying to figure it out more. My final thoughts on everything. And then the Q&A. I'm happy. I'm happy I'm out. And I'm happy that I do this. And I hope you understand now why I focus so hard on making people understand where I come from and why I think it's important to talk about it. I hope it's people understand now why, like anybody who watches this, as this will be put on YouTube as well, and for everybody to watch, why I talk about it. This is my form of activism. I may not be able to save the world, but I can help those that are feeling the same way that I do by getting them to understand their thoughts. Like, I don't intend to deconvert people. You don't deconvert people. People deconvert themselves. But you can show them why you did, and that can help them. It can show them the toxicity of where they're at. So, my final thoughts is just, I hope that if you are in need, that I can be there to help. I normally stream on Twitch every day, except Sundays, and whilst I just do funny little gaming, I tend not to do deep dives like many other content creators. If you're looking for those type of content creators, JW Thoughts is a fantastic channel. And there are plenty of other ones throughout YouTube that are fantastic sources. Even if there is a little bit of drama. But if you ever need to talk about this kind of stuff to help, I am also here. I will talk about it. And I will help reason things out. And I will show you my perspective, because that is all I can do. And I think that's what I should do. So to those of you who are watching this, that are PIMO, or PIMI, maybe you're a Jehovah's Witness somehow watching this, and somehow you've made it all the way here. Understand that I don't hate you in the slightest. Not in the slightest. I want what's best. No, that sounds bad. I want everybody to be happy. And I don't think that organization is very conducive to that. And I feel like you should reanalyze that. That's all. And if you're a PIMO, stay strong. Things will get better. I promise. There will be a window of opportunity somehow, some way, for you to find your freedom. If not now, sooner rather than later. You are not alone. And if you need help, if I can't help you, I will find someone else that can. So let's go to the Q&A section. I don't think there was many. You had 2 girlfriends at the same time? No, I did not. They were just, both of them had dealt with that problem. By chance, did you share this with the subreddit? I did it, kind of. I'm not sure how if I could. The EXJW subreddit is a fantastic resource. Please go there if you're wanting a resource. But I don't really advertise there. Like, not because I don't know the rules if I can. And thank you, Jam, for popping by. A great Jam in the Sky is also a former Jehovah's Witness, and it's very comforting to see them. Gestalt Mind says it's a tragedy, greed, and desire to control, ruin lives of so many people, but that is how the world works. Driving force to control others is much stronger than that of helping others get free from control. Sometimes. I'd like to feel like eventually that will correct itself. Just because that's how the way things are right now does not mean that they'll be always that way. And yeah, this is like the final part of the presentation. Is there any questions at all? I'm just gonna look through this real quick. Yeah, just got pinged a lot. It's okay if there's not many. This was not designed. This is already run on for like 30 minutes longer than I anticipated. This YouTube video. Okay, I do. Hit all the questions you like. Spam them. I might have missed it in the first half, but were your parents converts or born in? So I am third generation on my father's side, and I am fourth generation Jehovah's Witness on my mother's side. So they were born in, and therefore I was born in. No questions, but I'm happy for you. Even with the pains you endured, freedom is worth it. Yes, freedom is always worth it. Question: what did they witness? They're supposed to be Jehovah's Witness, God's witnesses, God's witnesses for a better world. Right before he destroys everything, you know, this thing. They'll be there to witness that. Do you remember the scripture where they took their name from? Yeah, it's Jeremiah. Jeremiah something? What was it? But yeah, that was, they developed their name in the 1930s. They fully got their name in the 1930s to be witnesses of God. I believe that was in Jeremiah, but I could be wrong. I'd have to double check. But once again, when it comes to my streams, I stream all the time. You can always ask questions and stuff regarding my time as Jehovah's Witness. I haven't even gone through everything that I think about them. This is more of a condensed thing to get everything in one place, to be your one-stop shop for why I do this. And why I talk about it the way I do. So, yeah. I think we'll move on from the Q&A and wrap things up. Thank you for watching. I have to add the fucking sun, the epic sun, because I always did that as a kid. Anytime I did a PowerPoint presentation, this thing was showing up. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate all. And I wish everyone the best. We don't need to see that. We don't need to see that. All right. I'll never forget this one special campaign, the midweek version that had Doomsday, and I came home crying because I thought Armageddon was coming next week. I can't think of no more questions beside Jocon. It's okay. I'm sure there are plenty of more, and I will have plenty more to talk about as time goes on. And for all of you that are watching the stream, and for all of you, please enjoy, please like the video, the YouTube video that will come out just after this broadcast. I am putting this unedited. And thank you again. Thank you again for listening to the story. For those of you that were never Jehovah's Witnesses and wondering how you help, listening to us is great. That's a great start. We really appreciate that. Sometimes we just need to just tell somebody. So thank you. Thank you again for everybody who watched. And until next time, bye for now.